where we have to do an MRI to rule out the lesion.
Siddhartha, just one thing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. Good evening, sir. Yeah.
Good evening. Please tell anybody to describe the radiographic picture which is seen on the left side.
Left side. Okay.
Please describe the radiograph.
Shashank, you are there?
Any exam going batch?
Sahil, you are there, na?
Hi, I'm here.
Yeah. Tell me, can you describe this X-ray?
Okay, the first image on the left, it's a plain skygram of the knee. Side is not specified, which shows the distal most part of the femur and the proximal parts of the tibia and fibula. This is a skeletally immature patient. Here we see a eccentric metaphyseal osteolytic lesion involving the medial part of the cortex of the metaphyseal area of the tibia, and the lesion is osteolytic, as I said, and it shows cortical destruction. Some amount of soft tissue involvement is also evident because the overlying cortex is eroded, and there is soft tissue swelling as well visible on the X-ray. So it is probably an aggressive form of a neoplasm which is involving the said area.
So one thing is missing, that is expansile. It is eccentric, expansile, osteolytic. Yeah, with the metaphyseal lesion, which is abating on the growth plate with some sclerotic area. See the margin of transition of margin is very
sclerosed. Narrow zone of transition. Yeah.
Narrow zone of transition, and it is immature. So what is the diagnosis? This view. What is the diagnosis?
It could be an aneurysmal bone cyst.
Aneurysmal bone cyst,
which has gone on to erode the overlying bone, overlying cortex.
Anyone else?
GCT.
Giant cell tumor.
Giant cell tumor.
But see, the giant cell tumor is what is the normal age of the giant cell tumor?
It's
second to fourth decade of life.
So no. 20 to 40 years.
And also giant cell tumor should be more near to epiphysis, epiphyseal or metaphyseal.
Yeah. Okay.
This is the immature, mind it.
Yes, sir.
So, is the giant cell tumor will be the first diagnosis or anything else? See the matrix. See the matrix is osteolytic, isn't it? The matrix is osteolytic. There's a narrow zone of transition. Okay. So these two is the matrix is osteolytic. This is very highly vascular. I'm supporting the view of Sajil. Maybe it is a aneurysmal bone cyst, but there is another possibility that may be malignant tumor containing high vascularity. It is the second one. Okay. So,
it can be eosinophilic granuloma.
Eosinophilic granuloma. Actually, eosinophilic, yes, it is osteolytic lesion, but this huge expansile character is going against the. What is the Kaushik? What is your view, Kaushik?
Good evening, sir. Sir, eosinophilic granuloma, there will be a specifically cookie bite appearance. Appearance of the cortex, and though the age group goes against the classical diagnosis of giant cell tumor, but the giant cell tumor occurring in immature skeleton is mostly metaphyseal instead of the giant cell tumor in the adult. In adult, it's the epiphyseal, and in case of adolescent, before the skeletal maturity, it may be metaphyseal. So, for me, though giant cell tumor in before the skeletal maturity is a rare diagnosis, this may be a possibility because the zone of transition is not very wide. It's almost
very narrow zone of transition. The malignant tumor is really.
And so, against the simple bone cyst or aneurysmal bone cyst, both of these cysts are centric in position. This is a clearly eccentric.
Position does not match it though. Yeah.
Okay. Carry on next.
Yeah. So there's a 30 years male active patient, pain in left knee since last 3 months, trauma last month followed by difficulty in walking and decreased knee range of motion is there. he has a painful bony swelling over his knee. This was his X-ray is done. Can someone describe the X-ray finding?
Yes, anybody please describe the radiograph?
Tahir, you are there?
Yes.
Yes, Tahir, go on and describe.
This is the skygram of the right knee showing the
In a skeletally mature patient.
skeletally mature patient showing the distal femur with proximal tibia and fibula. And this, on the distal femur, the showing the gross osteolytic lesion with cortical break and soft tissue involvement in API and lateral view also. And
Can you see something else also?
And pathological fracture also.
Yeah, and tell me all the points where we discussed about it. You need to say the matrix, you need to say transition zone. Tell me one by one everything. Go on, Sahir.
Yes, it is a highly aggressive, most probably.
Periosteal reaction, can you see the periosteal reaction?
Periosteal reaction also seen in this APV. And
okay, cortical thinning is there.
Cortical thinning and cortical breaking also.
Paul sir, can you help us, juniors, to describe the X-ray?
Already sold. So once we have got this type of X-ray, first we have to see what is a mature or immature patient. Yeah. This is a mature patient. As we're showing, next we have to show the location. So first is the age. I will go with the A, B, C, D. And the A, B, C. A for the age and adequacy for the radiograph. This is age is, it is a mature patient, but we want the adequate radiograph. For the adequate radiograph, all both the proximal and distal joint should be visible. Yes. Okay. Next is the bone. Now, which part of the bone is involved? You can go from outside inwards or inside outward. Outside inwards, you have to go. So you have to see the soft tissue swelling, then the extraperiosteal shadow, then the cortical break or cortical thing or there. And next, come inside the bone is the endosteum is completely damaged. Is the central or is this eccentric lesion. And next is the matrix. See the matrix is uniformly black or uniformly white or it's a patchy destruction. Next is the margin. But the margin is, there are three types of radiological margin. One is a sharp and sclerotic margin that indicates the host bone is cordoned the tumor. That means the benign or very benign lesion or very benign or very slow growing tumor or very infected, chronic infected lesion. There will be sclerotic lesion, sharp and sclerotic lesion. Next is sharp and non-sclerotic margin, as you can see over here. It is sharp but it is non-sclerotic. That means it is a very slowly growing tumor, or it may be a slowly growing infection. And last of all, it is at my totally ill-defined margin. So in this manner, we have to discuss A, B, C for the cortical break or the central or eccentric. Lastly, D for the defect in the bone. It may be fracture, it may be some growth defect or maybe articular damage. So you have to see. So this is if I have to describe this type of radiograph. This is a straight radiograph. It is not adequate, but it's a radiograph of mature bone showing there is a osteolytic lesion in the epiphyseal metaphyseal. Why epiphyseal metaphyseal? We see the extent is almost it is touching the articular surface. So it is a epiphyseal metaphyseal junction of a mature bone. So almost it is a central lesion and it is a central lesion and the cortical thinning, or sometimes it maybe is a break at this area with some extracortical shadow is there. Is extracortical shadow and the inner inside the bone is almost uniformly lytic. Margin is ill-defined. Margin is almost well-defined, but it's non-sclerotic border. So I think it is a malignant tumor with some pathological fracture also. So there is appears to become Valgus region. So it's I think a first diagnosis should be a malignant tumor. If it's a metaphyseal junction in a mature one, maybe it is a giant cell tumor as a grade 2 giant cell tumor. This is the first diagnosis. Second diagnosis may be other giant cell tumor like that is any endosteal lesion,
Yeah.
or that is malignant transformation of a giant cell tumor or an aneurysmal bone cyst.
So aneurysmal bone cyst, you will have septates and it will be mostly in a centric type, but okay.
Maybe, but it is one. It is written in the applet. Aneurysmal bone cyst can happen in any part of the bone,
Yeah,
in
that's
any
true.
age, any part of the bone. That may mimic as a malignant bone tumor.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sahir, what else you want to do for this patient? You want to go through for?
Next, MRI imaging. MRI.
You want to go for further imaging? Okay, we did a
Imaging,
CT scan. There's a pathological fracture and a loss of completely lytic lesion.
Cortical break.
And cortical breach. This is an MRI which we got, T2 weightage MRI for you.
Bushi, can you please describe how to read the MRI?
Kaushik sir, you're there?
Sir, yes, yes. Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. This is as sir has already mentioned, the X-ray has to incorporate the proximal and the distal joint, the entire compartment of the bone. Same with the MRI. For all musculoskeletal lesions, MRI has to be a contrast enhanced MRI, and it also has to incorporate the entire length of the bone, proximal and the distal joints. And here, as you can see, this is a TRS 4450. So it's a T2 weighted image.
T2 weightage image. Yeah.
Yeah, T2 weighted image as a repeat sequence is 4450. Yeah. So it's a T2 weighted MR imaging showing what is most conspicuous is a multiple fluid levels. There is a significant of showing the giving the hint of aneurysmal bone cyst. It may be a primary ABC or it may be a secondary ABC-like changes. Which is more important towards the intrapatellar region anteriorly. There is a solid component. That is the most important thing here. What is the age group of the patient?
So it's a it was she was 30 years male. 30 years male.
So
Yeah.
So it's a skeletally mature. So primary ABC, though it's written in the textbook, it can happen in any bone in any age group, but it's a relatively not the first provisional diagnosis in a skeletally mature patient. In this clinical scenario, this may be a secondary aneurysmal bone cyst-like changes.
Yeah.
The solid component is most important. If you are planning for a biopsy, coronary guided biopsy, then we have to hit the solid component, the intrapatellar region and the anterior aspect. So, for my diagnosis, as Professor Khan has already mentioned, my diagnosis is also a giant cell tumor with a secondary ABC-like changes. With the
Absolutely, absolutely.
Absolutely, sir. Yes. Yeah. So this is a axial section also, sir. Same finding which you can see. Yeah. Move ahead.
Siddhartha,
Yeah.
hello.
Tell me.
Can this be a telangiectatic osteosarcoma, or
No, it does not classically match the location or the pattern.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
It does not match the location pattern.
See, the osteosarcoma. There are actually double peak of the osteosarcoma. Maybe in your bone or in the
Bimodal.
So it doesn't fit along with this. That is on first. Second one, the osteosarcoma, there must be some periosteal reaction, the malignant type of periosteal reaction. But here it is absent in this case. Okay. And third one, in osteosarcoma, is it there? So along with that, in osteosarcoma, I agree with in a telangiectatic osteosarcoma, there is osteolytic lesion will be predominant, but there must be some feature of bone formation also. That means some sclerotic patchy areas of sclerosis could be inside the in its matrix, which is absent, completely absent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
So we did a histopath and got a giant cell tumor, high grade. What else you want to do for this patient, Kaushik sir? What else you can plan for this patient to go ahead? We got a biopsy done. It's a GCT. We came high grade GCT.
So
the pathological fracture.
It's a high grade GCT. It is a histology proven.
Yeah, histology proven high grade GCT.
So there are two types of treatment modality. I should be either limb preserving surgery or the limbs
salvaging surgery.
So you have to see whether there is a there is a skip metastasis or not.
Yes.
If it is the intraosseous metastasis in the same bone, or there is some skip lesion, so in that case we have to sacrifice the limb. So is there any other investigations anybody
No,
suggest to diagnose that?
nothing else, sir. We got it. No other metastasis anywhere. Only a local pathology here around the knee.
So for metastasis, we can do two things. First thing is bone scan. We can do bone scan to find out the hotspots. And the second thing is obviously what we have done is MRI. In MRI, we usually find the skip metastasis. If we do not find skip metastasis anywhere, then we can go ahead with the treatment planning.
Yeah.
This is a pathological fracture in a GCT, so what can we do?
Which treatment plan will you suffice in this case?
So treatment plan in GCT is usually, we usually plan it according to the Campanaki grading system. In this case, it is already broken, it is fragmented. So, and since it's a locally malignant condition, we should go for limb salvage rather than amputation. So, wide excision followed by a megaprosthesis replacement or total knee replacement of this joint.
See, this type of malignant lesion. So first is the life saving, next one is the limb saving, lastly the joint saving. Okay, is it? Do you agree, Kaushik? So
yes, sir. But here it was a benign giant cell tumor, sir, right?
it is aggressive. Aggressive. This is grade 2, I think. The aggressive type
high
of
grade.
Yes.
high
yes,
grade.
sir.
It's a high grade giant cell type of tumor. So what is your opinion?
So actually,
Sir,
what is the recent data or the recent recommendation from the WHO bone tumor also? So there is no practical significance to the histopathological grading in the giant cell tumor. It's a radiological, as he has mentioned, the Campanacci grading. Giant cell tumor is a benign tumor. If there is a malignant giant cell tumor, then it's a malignant tumor from day one. It may be a sarcoma or a giant sarcomatous transformation in a background of GCT. So, as the diagnosis is a giant cell tumor with a Campanacci grade 3 with a pathological fracture, with most probably there may be some intra-articular extension also because the intra-articular fracture is also there. So, my plan is this, a limb salvage with maybe with a modular prosthesis or arthrodesis.
So there's a question from the floor. People are asking one: can denosumab be tried in such cases?
Yes, giant cell tumor before pathological fracture, if it is found in Campanacci grade 1 and 2, denosumab and both are valid methods of treatment to reduce the tumor size. But once it goes to the pathological fracture stage, there is no actual
no role that
adjuvant, but it is not a curative or treating condition.
Denosumab, sir, can you tell me the indication? Can you help the juniors with the indication of where can you use denosumab in GCT? Kaushik sir, can you tell us? Help us.
Number one indication to convert the resection into curettage. Number one. If we are planning to do a curettage, in some cases where if we don't give denosumab, the patient will land up with a resection. For doing a joint saving procedure, we can give a preoperative denosumab. Number one. Number two, in difficult resection areas like in close vicinity to proximal superficial interface now, and in close proximity to the common peroneal nerve, if there is a visit in the proximal fibula or a proximal radius close vicinity to the PIN, then we can give the denosumab. So that the plane of dissection is easier. There is less chance of nerve injury or neuropraxia. These are the number 2. 3. If there is a non-resectable axial location GCT, like in the vertebra, sacrum, pelvis, if it's a non-resectable, then we can continue with denosumab. And in case some cases of lung metastasis, though lung metastasis in case of GCT is not fatal, like a metastasis in osteosarcoma, Ewing sarcoma. So if it is a non-resectable lung metastasis, we can continue. The issue is how many doses until how many months you have to continue the denosumab. That is not specified in any literature.
Siddharth sir.
Yes, Gunjan, tell me.
How is it possible to do TKR in this patient? The femoral canal, how will drill? Someone told about final treatment about to get a TKR done.
You can already get an intramedullary jig here. You are putting a tumor prosthesis, isn't it?
TKR.
Yeah,
So,
but the quality,
tell me.
The situation is secondary.
the quality, the strength of the implant and the bone interface will be very loose.
See, we are using a mega prosthesis.
Longer
Gunjan,
stem.
can you
Yes.
see this? We are using
Yeah.
a mega prosthesis which gets into the diaphysis of the bone. It's all fixed. You got it?
Okay. Okay. Yes. Thank you.
So this was done for this patient, and patient has a very good follow-up. Yeah, Sanjay, can you go on with the location? Most common sites of which bones are there?
So, according to the locations, we can found the most common locations is associated with a few tumors. Like around the knee, we can usually find osteosarcomas and ALLs in the proximal and the distal radius, as well as the humerus. We can find with uh, uh, the GCTs, and basically the spine and the skull we can find with multiple myelomas and with even granulomas.
Yeah,
According to the location, the tumors could be located in the epiphysis, metaphysis, or the diaphysis. So, or could be a epiphyseal or metaphyseal tumor, or a diaphyseal metaphyseal tumor. So, usually the tumors which are associated with the diaphysis are Ewing sarcoma. It could be a bone cyst, it could be a synthetic granuloma, an osteoblastoma, an osteochondroma, or it could be a non-ossificant fibroma. Usually an osteosarcoma, it could be a metaphysio diaphyseal type of tumor, and we can have a giant cell tumor, which is epiphyseal metaphyseal type of tumor, and we can have purely epiphyseal type of variety, which is a chondroblastoma.
According to
According to the
location,
location, we can classify. We can have it could be eccentric, or could be a juxtacortical variety. So, on the figure 1, we can have an eccentric type of lesion. Figure 2, we have an eccentric type of lesion, and the figure 3, we can have a juxtacortical type of
this
lesion.
is a centric type of lesion, Sanjay. This is a centric type of lesion.
Centric type.
Yeah. This fourth figure is a cortical type of lesion. This is also a centric. Here is the pathology. This is also centric. Juxtacortical is found in the parosteal variety of osteosarcoma. So matrix कौन Sanjay?
So according to the matrix, it could be a chondroid or an osteoid matrix. The chondroid matrix usually have a calcification in a chondroid tumor, have many descriptions like a ring and an arc, or a popcorn, or a focal, stippled, or succulent type of lesion. And in an osteoid matrix, we can have a trabecular ossification pattern in a benign bone forming lesion and a cloud-like or an ill-defined amorphous pattern in osteosarcoma. You can also have a polyosteotic type of a multiple bony lesion. Usually, polyosteotic type of variety is usually found in non-ossifying fibroma or fibrous dysplasia, multifocal osteomyelitis, chondroma, Ewing sarcoma, osteochondroma, or leukemia. Usually, it is found in if it is found in more than 30 years of age, the polyosteotic lesions could commonly be metastasis, or it could be multiple myeloma, or also be in small bones, it could be multiple enchondroma.
Okay, next case. Is a 60 years old male patient, low back pain for last 3 months. He had a fall 20 years back. He is hypertensive. This is his X-ray when he came to us. Can someone describe the X-ray? Who is here? Soham, are you there? Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, Soham, can you describe the X-ray?
Sir, this is a plain radiograph of the lumbosacral region and the pelvis.
Yeah.
Sir, showing the
mature patient.
skeletally mature patient, and sir, it is showing cortical destruction, and
Where do you see the cortical destruction? Where all places
Sir.
do you see the cortical destruction?
Sir, in the L4 and L5 end
Just that?
plates.
Yeah.
L4 and 5 and also in the L2, L3.
All multiple lytic lesions. Yeah.
Multiple lytic lesions, sir.
Kaushik sir, can you help us with defining more X-ray in this patient?
60 years male, low back pain, 3 months, history of trauma, hypertensive with this kind of X-ray.
Yeah.
I can see multiple punched out lesions.
Yes.
Instead of cortical erosion, I will say there is a multiple punched out lesion in the vertebrae and also in the innominate bone bilaterally.
Yeah,
both
sacrum.
sacral ala and also in the iliac blades.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, sir.
Another important point is another important point. See this is the vertebra. So in all the vertebra, these are the vertebra. You can see these are the tendon view of the pedicle, isn't it? And these are the beak, and this is looking like the owl. See so these are the eyes. It is looking like eyes, and this is the beak. So where is the eyes over there? Over there, this is the eyes. The owl has closed its eyes, isn't it?
Winking eyes. This is a winking eyes.
Winking owl.
Yeah. So that is
Winking owl eye.
the owl has closed the eyes.
Yeah.
It's
pathology upper vertebra. That's why.
But it is not. Yes, that may be in the radius also.
Yeah.
But here it is seen. That I don't know.
Here the pedicles are seen actually, sir. The pathology is this winking outside here.
Maybe it is not clearly seen from my laptop. So I think there are some multiple areas of affection in the multiple vertebral affection.
Okay, Soham, what next do you want to do for this patient?
Sir, I would go with the blood investigations.
So you want to go for blood investigation? Okay.
Sir.
We got some blood investigations done. His hemoglobin is 8. His ESR is 120. Alkaline phosphatase is normal. We got his urea creatinine done. His creatinine is 3. Calcium is raised. You did a serum electrophoresis as well as a urine BJ protein. Report is yet to be come. It will take 3 days to come. Yeah. What else do you want to do?
Hypercalcemia, high ESR, and with this lesion, I think it is enough clues for diagnosis.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So, what do you think the case is?
So there is case of multiple myeloma.
Yeah, very good, very good. So we went on do a long bone X-rays, skull X-rays, as well as spine MRI and CT scan. We got. Can you describe the X-rays and skull and bone X-rays home? Paul sir will help you out. Go on, you describe. Sir will help you out.
Anybody?
So the skull X-ray, it is a lateral radiograph of the skull showing a punched out lesion at the parietal region.
Yes, and there are small punched out lesions as well. Can you see here? There are other small punched out lesions. And go on, tell me the femur.
Femur, sir, in the femur.
I'll describe.
Yeah, Gunjan, go on. You tell me.
Yeah. The lateral part of the knee, and there is a lesion in the metaphysis, which is osteotic.
It's a diaphyseal lesion. It's a diaphyseal. Metaphysis here.
Diaphyseal is well defined. Corticomedullary delineation is lost. The site appears to be intact, and the matrix is over here heterogeneous. Soft tissue involvement and no periosteal reaction appears.
No periosteal reaction at all, right?
Yes.
There is a zone of transition is ill-defined sclerosis type of. Yeah. Gunjan, your voice is not audible. Yeah, can someone else describe the lesion in the vertebra? Pinaki, you are there?
It's a mini brain appearance.
Who told this? Sanjay? Yeah, you knew the answer, that's why. Yeah, this is a classical mini brain appearance on an axial section of a vertebra. Okay, there are also lytic lesions here. Multiple lytic lesions were present in the bone. Can Sanjay tell me what is the lesion here? MRI T1, T2 weightage. Can you describe the weightage X-ray? MRI.
And the T1 weightage, in the T1 image of the MRI, we can see multiple zones of osteolytic lesions in the diaphyseal region.
Yeah, Kaushik sir, can you help us with the MRI finding, please, of the femur?
The femur, it's a T1 and T2, T1 hypointense and T2 hyperintense image lesion, narrow altered single intensity, and it's a diffuse kind of, it's not a discrete, it's not a localized, it is a diffuse kind of marrow alterations.
Yes.
Starting from the distal marrow metaphyseal region, going up to the cranial and around the lesser trochanter. So the diffuse, it's mostly like a metastasis, maybe means without any history, it may be a metastasis or a myeloma, hematolymphoid. So as we have the investigations like a raised ESR, raised calcium, ESR is raised, so it may be most probably it's a multiple myeloma. But for multiple myeloma, for sending the investigations, we have to also send the 24-hour creatine, 24-hour urine electrophoresis, because many a times serum protein electrophoresis is a negative. In a 24-hour urine electrophoresis, in case of light chain disease is only diagnosed with the 24-hour urine protein electrophoresis.
So can you help us with the Krabs criteria to diagnose
Krabs criteria is mainly the hematologists and the oncologists mainly use a Krabs criteria. In the yesteryears, they used to use ISS criteria, but the Krabs criteria is mostly is a phenomenal discovery from since last 5 to 6 years, and they are using the Krabs criteria for the diagnosis. But serum protein electrophoresis is positive. The patient then goes for a hematologist and for a bone marrow biopsy for a staging of the disease. And most important, the radiological skeletal survey, all long bone X-ray, vertebral X-ray, skull X-ray has to be done.
Sanjay, you know about Krabs criteria? Sanjay? You know about Krabs criteria?
Yeah, Krabs criteria for multiple myeloma.
Tell me, what is the Krabs criteria, Sanjay? Anubhava will help us. Anubhava, tell me the Krabs criteria for multiple myeloma. Anubhava, you are there? Hello?
Krabs criteria.
Hello.
Yeah, Anubhav, tell me, what is the Krabs criteria?
Yeah, it's a it shows the it is bone marrow plasma.
Krabs criteria for multiple myeloma, hypercalcemia.
Yeah. Okay. And
bone marrow plasma cells greater than 60%.
See, what does Krabs stands for?
No.
C is for calcium.
Yeah.
Hypercalcemia.
Hypercalcemia.
Renal insufficiency.
Yes.
Anemia and lytic lesion.
Yes. Okay. So, very good. So we'll go to the next section, the diagnosis, multiple myeloma. This is another female, 50 years old, low back pain since last 6 months.
Hello,
she had a right side, right-sided.
Sir, I had a question.
Yeah, please tell me.
Sir, for that multiple myeloma patient, will we go for fixation?
Fixation of what?
Fixation of the fractures.
Different.
Which fracture?
Which fracture?
So we can see the L2 pedicle fracture and the L3 pedicle fracture.
Pedicle has a
And in
lytic
ball.
lesions.
Lytic lesion is there, but where is the fracture?
Fracture is not there. There's a lytic lesion there.
No,
It will
provided
improve
second-
with chemotherapy. It does well. Okay, another case. It's a very interesting case. It's a tough case. It's a right-sided lower limb radiculopathy. Patient had pain, low back pain since last 6 months without a neurodeficit. Patient is known diabetic, hypothyroid. She had a sacral tenderness. This was X-ray when she came to us. We have amongst us Dr. Vineet, from Banaras. Can you help us, sir? Can you see some lesion there? Okay. Can someone else tell me? Sahir, can you hear? Sahir is not here. Okay. Pinaki, you're there? Pinaki? Kaushik sir, can you help us with the X-ray?
Just before the X-ray, just for the clinical point, there has to be little bit to be explained. Clinical. So just suppose this is a 50 years female, low back pain, radiculopathy, sacral tenderness. So what should be the clinical diagnosis? Before going to the radiograph, we have to see. And so if we are discussing about the trauma tumor scenario, so how do you suspect that it is a case, maybe a case of a neoplastic condition? Anybody, can you please suggest that in that? Can it be a simple disc, maybe a disc collapse or mechanical?
Can you LCS, canal stenosis? Yes.
Canal stenosis or any spondylosis with some osteophytes compressing on right exiting now roots. How do you suspect that it may be a case of neoplastic condition? Can anybody please suggest?
Can I say?
Yes, please.
Yeah, Gunjan.
So, hello.
Yeah, Gunjan, tell.
Yeah, it's Diptendu.
Yeah, Diptendu, tell me. Yeah.
So not considering the fact that it's a tumor case or anything like that. Like overall, it's suppose a female who presents to us with a low back pain for 6 months, and then given all the scenarios like the sacral tenderness and all. So first of all, with any low back pain, we'll divide it under 3 main heads. Like either it's a mechanical pain, or it's an infective pain, or maybe inflammatory or neoplastic. Okay, so first of all, in case of in cases of 50 years female who are most of the time they are mainly osteoporotic. So the first which comes to our mind is a mechanical pain, which can be due to osteoporosis because of degenerative changes of the spine, or if there is some history of trauma or any history of pain.
There's no history of trauma. Be focused to this case. There's no history of trauma. It's have a right-sided radicular pain.
Yeah, right. So in such cases, it can be due to because of degenerative changes as well, since there is right radiculopathy, and then we can go for all the radiological investigations to rule out that.
Or for being a neoplastic.
Can I say something?
So there must be pain should be continuous. Should not be any relieving factor. That is one. Second, there must be some systemic features like loss of appetite, significant loss of weight. There is a blood body involvement, or there may be some sleep disturbance. So there must be there. Okay. And next one is this radiculopathy. So how do you know this is a radiculopathy or myelopathy or myeloradiculopathy like that? So clinically, how do you understand it is a radiculopathy? Anybody please enlighten?
Tingling and numbness going from the back up to the foot, radiating through the thigh.
So that may be in front of the thigh or in the back of the thigh.
Back of the thigh.
Back of the thigh, sir.
Okay, so that may not be, but in all the cases that will extend up to the leg also, or in the foot. That may be in the posterior part of the thigh, or in the up to the knee, and or sometimes it is complaining of pain in the cuff.
Yes, sir.
But how do you know it is a radiculopathy? That is the question. Pain is complaining on the calf along with the low back pain. How can you suspect that is a radiculopathy,
So
not a local pain?
clinically we can evaluate by passive stretching and do the Lasigue differential test to
Yes,
find
that
out
is a
if
differential test, but there may no local tenderness. That is one. That may pain may increase on coughing or sneezing, which increases the intraspinal pressure. So after any by Valsalva maneuver, that can cause aggravation of the symptoms. Even without any local signs or local any feature of local tenderness, but patient that the pain may be aggravated. That may be a feature of radiculopathy. But if it is a mechanical cause, there may be a possibility of neurogenic claudication. But if it is a neoplastic cause, the pain may be present for all the time. There will be no relieving factor. You understand? Now come to the point. So how do you know it is the sacral tenderness is there? So how do you know it is some sinister significance? Anybody, please.
Anybody, tell me.
So pain is not relieving with rest.
Continuous pain.
There is continuous variety of pain. Then there will be a physical emaciation of the patient. Other findings, and there will pain might increase with rest. There might be rest pain in this case of in a case of
Classical saying sacral tenderness is there. No? When you
sacral
pathology
tenderness
is there.
हाँ, तो मतलब tenderness is there, but it is not can be differentiated other low back pains by there is no relieving factor by rest, and there is no relieving factor by flexion.
Yeah.
So and there's palpable tenderness and there's physical emaciation of the patient. Obviously, she must have.
Okay. So can we move on to the X-ray?
So how can we differentiate these points if there is an early stage of tuberculosis and there could be some mets? So how can we differentiate between all three? All the three will be coming in more or less as a differential diagnosis.
Yeah, everything will come in the differential diagnosis. You cannot differentiate just seeing clinical history.
Yeah, history of diabetes and hypothyroid patient is having may be emaciated. Patient may have weight loss due to diabetes also.
Yeah,
isn't it?
You cannot differentiate with. You can say a point, but you have to keep the differentials in your mind. You cannot focus it just listening the history and confirming it and committing it and saying this is the diagnosis of the patient. You have to keep differentials.
Right.
Most important point is there is a sacral tenderness. So if it is due to the mechanical cause, then maybe there is tenderness at the sacroiliac joint, that is just the localized area of the dimple of Venus, where the paraspinal muscles are inserted. That may be the most common cause of back strain, where there is a paraspinal muscle there is inserted, there is will be tender. But there is a vague sacral tenderness that may be some sinister significance. If we consider there is some back strain or in the sacroiliac strain, in that case, the Fabier test or any other test which is specific for sacroiliac joint, that may be positive. But in that case, that test may be negative if there is some tenderness of the central region of the sacrum. So that is maybe a very, very sinister significance. That is the most point to be highlighted. Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
Carry on.
Yeah. We go to the X-ray of this patient. Dityendu, you're there?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, Dityendu, tell me, can you read this X-ray?
It's hardly visible actually. Anyway, so this is a
This is a lateral sciogram of.
It's not so much visible actually.
This is lateral X-ray of pelvis.
Yeah.
Showing the lower lumbar vertebra and the sacral vertebra, and the both hip joints and both femur, proximal part of femur.
Yeah.
In the lateral sacrum, I can see a big osteolytic lesion.
Yeah, lytic lesion is there. Yes. Very good. Good, Shashank. Go on.
And
margins
are intact. There is no cortical breaching and there is no soft tissue extension of the lesion.
Matrix.
That's it.
Kaushik sir, can you help us with this X-ray?
few points of matrix I cannot comment upon because I don't think it's a matrix.
It's very difficult to comment this. That is true. We have to go for
Cortical
higher
bridge
investigation.
on the posture aspect. There may be some possibility of cortical bridge. Pathological factor may be there.
There is cortical thinning. There is actually a huge osteolytic lesion over there present without any periosteal reactions, anything. So, what else do you want to do for this patient? Shashank, you are describing the X-ray. Next, what you would like to do for this patient? This is an interesting case. It's not that easy. Okay, chalo. We did some investigation, blood investigations. We found that hemoglobin was normal. Count was 7,000. ESR was 30.
I will go further in imaging. I will go for an MRI.
Okay, you want to go for MRI?
To know the details of soft tissue and all.
Didn't describe that latex.
Hello.
Just carry on. Carry on.
Yeah. So we got our CT scan done.
Good.
Yeah. Paul sir, can you help us with the CT scan? It's not an easy case.
Yeah, it is clearly visible. So in this flame, there is a large osteolytic lesion with a it is inside the cortex. I think with a clear-cut margin without any sclerosis. There is no cortical break also. I think on the left in this axial view, yes, the axial view, yes, this is contained inside the sacrum. Okay, and the matrix is almost homogeneously lytic lesion. So it is maybe highly vascular lesion. It may be a benign lesion, or it may be a growing malignant lesion.
Yeah,
malignant neoplastic lesion.
Sarcoma is a common lesion is chordoma. Sacrum. In sacrum, the commonest lesion is chordoma.
Yeah, that may be it, yes.
That may be. Let's see. What else? We got our his MRI done. MRI suggested of a... Sir, can you see the MRI and tell us something about the MRI? Paul sir.
Yeah. See, the MRI it is a heterogeneous character. There is some there's lesion is complaining some fleshy area, some lytic areas also.
Yes.
Oh, fleshy and lytic area mixed lesion. I think it is a mixed lesion. Kaushik, can you comment on this?
Sir, that is a T2 weightage which you are saying. This is a T2 weightage image, and this is a T1. T1.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a cystic area, sir. T2 weightage is a homogeneous matrix there.
Yeah, it is. I think this is T1. Yeah, Kaushik.
It's a T1 is a pointed signal. T2 is a variegated signal intensity. Somewhere it is hypointense, somewhere it is hyperintense. In the MRI report, they are showing the peripherally enhancing cystic lesion. Means they are mentioning the ream enhancement. I don't understand the report. They are mentioning about the ream enhancement or the intralesional.
Intralesional cystic lesion, they are saying. Okay. Yeah, Dr. Vineet is amongst us. Can you help us with the MRI findings, Dr. Vineet?
Real homogeneous lesion with not a permeative type of pathological condition. The margins are well defined, and there is posterior cortical breach. Anterior cortex is intact, involving S1, S2, and S3 vertebral body, involving the nerve roots also. So, and with probably, I think that's a fat shadow where we can see posteriorly, and there is not much than that.
Okay. So, what do you think can be differentials for this such kind of X-ray, CT scan, and MRI for you?
Tuberculosis in my first diagnosis, and then differential diagnosis with tuberculosis, neural tumor, and tumor. diagnosis? Giant cell tumor, tuberculosis, or dural tumor?
Dural tumor, you are telling. Either a Cox lesion or a giant cell tumor or a dural tumor. Kaushik sir, what are your differential diagnosis for this case? Your differential diagnosis?
First of all, 60 years patient with a low back pain with this kind of X-ray, my differentials are two. Number one is a metastasis. Number two is a hematolymph, myeloma, lymphoma. So I will investigate in that pattern. If it's negative, it's a CT, thorax, abdomen, pelvis. There is no other primary myeloma search. Myeloma investigation is also negative. Then with a cross-sectional imaging, this may be a as Dr. Vinith has mentioned, it's maybe a giant cell tumor, a secondary ABC exchanges, or a chordoma, maybe also say second differential.
Okay.
Metastasis, you have to keep your the last diagnosis, differential diagnosis, because there is only one or two vertebra, localized vertebra, and can't see any other vertebral body involvement. So metastasis.
Paul sir, what do you think should be the differentials of this patient?
Similarly, as I supporting Kaushik's view, so I think it should be either a malignant lesion, slowly growing malignant lesion. So in that case, next stage, I think it should be biopsy.
Biopsy of this, it's opening the cortex. Okay. So since she had a right-sided radiculopathy, we did an operate her, stabilized her, and we sent the sample for biopsy. It came out to be a schwannoma, neurolaminoma case. Yeah. So it's actually Dr. Vinith was very close to it and dural tumor close by. So this is a very interesting case which had come way long 4 years back. So we did stabilized from one side, we decompressed from one side and stabilized it, and actually it came out to be neural laminoma.
Siddharth, can I ask something?
Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, actually, Vinny sir was saying something like, is there any way we can differentiate whether it's a primary vertebral tumor or whether it's a METS, like on the radiographic features?
Yeah, Dr. Vinith, can you help him out with saying it's a primary or secondary tumor?
Yes. So it has to be involving multiple vertebra with multiple lesions in vertebral body. It might be osteolytic or it might be osteoblastic. Considering she is a female, breast cancer, breast carcinoma, that will be a osteoblastic type of malignancy. If I'm not wrong? So it is an osteolytic type of lesion. You won't consider it as a metastatic lesion with the localized one or two vertebral involvement only. One thing. Another thing, in metastatic lesion or whenever there is metastasis, the first thing which you can delineate in X-ray in AP view is the loss of the particular owl sign. The owl sign is lost. That is the first and foremost sign you can see in the X-ray. Just by seeing the X-ray of a patient, you can differentiate whether there is some metastasis or not. When you see the anteroposterior view of the vertebral body, the typical owl sign of the pedicle will be lost whenever there is involvement of the vertebral body in any sort of metastasis. That's the first and foremost sign. So I think you didn't get an X-ray of this patient AP view.
That too, it was a sacrum lesion, so we didn't. Nothing was there in lungs.
And most of the metastasis usually involves the dorsal or lumbar region of spine, not the sacral region. So the local invasion can happen in females if there is some uterine tumor or ovarian tumor that can involve the sacral vertebral body, but that will be from anterior, not from the canal area or the posterior spectrum of sacral body.
So thank you so much, Dr. Vinith, for helping us. Okay, another case. 30 years female with painless mass over her distal femur. She noticed it since last 2 months is increasing in size without any history of fever or trauma. Someone can describe the X-ray.
How do you say it is from distal femur?
No, around the knee. I know. Yeah, around the knee.
with this painless swelling around knee.
Yeah, around knee.
It might be subcutaneous swelling, it might be a
Yes,
swelling.
yeah, absolutely. Around knee. Riju is here. Dr. Riju is here. Can you get me, Dr. Riju? Okay. Gunjan, can you describe the X-ray?
Yeah, definitely. So,
just a minute. Before X-ray, you have to go. It's a clinical eye. So it is a pinless mass around the knee.
Yeah.
Now,
right, sir.
what it could be? Maybe a soft tissue, or it may be bony swelling. Is a or now question comes: is it at all a neoplastic swelling, or maybe a non-neoplastic swelling? So please, anybody who is going to appear in exam, please answer this.
Gunjan, go on and tell to sir.
So it could be a benign swelling with a cartilaginous cap.
No. We don't want diagnosis. Just do for EGPGs. They have to describe what are the differential for the swelling around knee.
Yeah. If at all a bony swelling, I am telling it is maybe before seeing the radiograph. There is a swelling there is a non-tender, the painless swelling. It may be a soft tissue swelling also.
Yeah, myositis.
Not myositis.
Myositis. Why are you going to a diagnosis again?
So we have to clinically assess the local part. We have to see whether the swelling is coming from the underlying bone or not. The swelling can be coming from the bone, it can be coming from the muscle, or it can be coming from structures superficial to the muscle.
Exactly.
So if it is coming from
How
any
do you describe that swelling is coming from underlying structure, or it is just from the skin?
Yes, I'll just say if the swelling is coming from, say, the skin or just beneath the skin, then the swelling will be mobile in both the planes. If the swelling is from the muscle, then when we ask the patient to contract the muscle, then the movement will be possible only perpendicular to the muscle fibers, not along the fibers. And if the swelling is coming from the bone, then it will not be movable.
Yeah.
I think there was some salient feature for describing swelling which we have read in MBBS days in surgery portion. That book, there was certain points regarding any swelling.
Side size, shape, surface.
Yes.
Yeah.
Side size, shape, surface. Skin over the swelling. Venous prominence.
Any swelling should be described in that way.
Right. Got it.
Okay. Now, suppose it is a bony swelling. Suppose you are right, Sajid. So now it is a bony swelling. Now my question is, can it be a benign swelling or it may be a malignant swelling? That is no. Before that, can it be a neoplastic swelling or it may be a non-neoplastic swelling? Non-neoplastic swelling means what are the differential diagnosis of swelling around the knee? That may be that may be myositis. That may be a hematoma, or that may be a callus formation, isn't it? So how do I differentiate that neoplastic from non-neoplastic swelling?
First of all, we have to take some cues from the history itself.
Yeah.
Starting from the age of the patient. Some sorts of tumor around the knee, they are more common in a particular age group. In history, we also have to take history regarding any history of trauma or not. History of fever was there or not. Trauma to the knee, any fever. We also have to take history whether the patient some history of anorexia or weight loss. And then we go on to the examination part itself.
Okay.
These are all the different cues that we will get from the history. Then from the examination portion itself on inspection, in history, one more thing I forgot to mention, we have to take the duration of the symptoms into account. Whether it is rapidly progressive, whether it is very slowly progressive kind of swelling. Then pain we can ask. From the pain, we have to judge whether the pain is intermittent in nature, as in seen in any infection. The pain comes, waxing and waning form of pain is seen typically in an infection of the bone. But if there is a neoplastic kind of a swelling, it is
solitary or multiple भी उसमें add करना.
So we have to take if there is any solitary involvement, bilateral involvement or not. These forms of history we have to take. Any history, family history also we have to take, because tumors have a predilection to run in families. So these kind of histories we have to take. Then we move on to the examination part. In the examination part, we first come to the examination of the local. We do the general examination to see for any obvious muscle wasting, emaciation, pallor, these kind of things we see. Then we move on to the local examination of the part. In that we first go for inspection. First we see the skin over the inspection. How is it? First we try to see whether the swelling has margins that are diffuse or the margins are well defined. We have to see, because that gives a clue whether it is a benign swelling or a malignant swelling. We can bunch it like that. Then on inspection we further see the color of the overlying skin. Is it inflamed or not? Is it red or not? Are the venous prominences over the skin, is there any venous prominence or not? Is the overlying skin shiny or not? Is there any overlying scar, if there's an overlying scar, it could be indicative of the previous biopsy. If there's any ulceration of the overlying skin or not, that could indicate again a rapidly expansile malignant kind of a tumor. So these are from the inspectory findings. And then
breaching of the joint line. If it breaches the joint line, it goes towards malignancy.
Yes. But that, of course, is seen in X-ray. I'm just talking about inspection.
Inspection.
Yeah.
He's taking out inspection.
Okay.
Then we move on to the palpation. In palpation, we have to see whether, now in palpation, the first thing that I've already said is about the origin of the tumor. Is it above the muscle, at the muscle, below the muscle, and from the bone? Next, we move on to examining the swelling. We examine the surface of the swelling. Is it smooth, or is it a variegated texture? If it is a variegated texture, it is quite likely it might be a malignant tumor.
Yes, no, just a minute. You have just telling the variegated. Variegated means not the surface. Variegated, the adjective, the term is used along with the
consistency.
Bumpy.
The surface is different. Consistency is different. Since there are three types of surface of the tumor. It may be smooth. It may be lobulated, or it may be different types of. That means in some areas maybe. That some areas smooth, some areas may be oscillated. You understand? Now, consistency, it may be either soft, it may be firm or hard, that's uniformly, or it may be variegated. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Carry on.
Next, we move on to see whether, move on to see the size. We measure the size. We see the margins of the swelling, if it is well defined or not. We see the tenderness of the swelling itself. These are the palpatory findings that will guide us. In our palpation itself, we might be able to bunch it whether it is a benign swelling or it is a malignant swelling. Palpation tells a lot of information.
Any other features in favor of malignancy clinically?
Sir, movement of the nearby joints, if the nearby movement joint is affected, then that might be a clue that the tumor has breached the, like Gunjan had said, that the tumor has breached the joint line and is affected the joint. So the joint movement will become.
By the benign lesion, also by the malignant lesion, isn't it? So if it's a benign lesion, the cortical shell crackling or very cortical thinning that may burst out into the joint, or it may be malignant lesion that will do. So how to clinically differentiate the joint involvement, maybe due to the bursting out, or sometimes if the joint is very juxtacortical, just close to the articular surface, sometimes there will be sympathetic effusion also be there. So how to differentiate this condition? That is tumor, the benign tumor with sympathetic effusion, benign or relatively less aggressive tumor which is bursting out of the joint, or is a malignant invasion of the joint. Clinically, how to differentiate? See, the joint effusion, that means it is sympathetic effusion. There should not be significant joint line tenderness. So if you, particularly in this case, if it is a swelling, so we have to examine the joint line tenderness. Now, not only single joint line, you have to see the multiple areas of the joint line, especially in the lateral side, medial side, on the both sides of the ligamentum patellum. If the single site affection, single site tenderness is there, that may be the possibility of the benign tumor which is bursting into the joint. But if it is a malignant involvement of the joint, malignant invasion of the joint, the whole joint line, the lateral medial joint line, even the joint line which is palpable just by the side of the ligament, all the areas of the joint line will become painful, and the movement also. If the movement, whole arc should be painful. That indicates there is a malignant invasion of the joint. You understand? And last of all, we have already completed. We are doing good. Next is the distal pressure points and complications. If it is significantly developing pressure symptoms, complications within a very short period of time, and there is a significant regional lymphadenopathy. So these are the features. this is come to yes.
In posterior plane of the
I guess.
yeah, Siddhartha is there.
Yeah. I'm so sorry, guys. Every time it happens.
Okay, carry on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So can we come to the X-ray, sir?
yes, sir, I was describing the X-ray.
Yeah, please go on.
So there is a sclerotic lesion seen in the metaphyseal region of the distal femur in the lateral aspect, and there is overlying. The margins are not well defined. I cannot like well defined, clearly not visible, and there is overlying calcification. There is periosteal periosteal reaction in the form of calcification. This much I can make out from here. And the margins are not very well defined. I cannot make out in the
Wide zone of transition. You cannot even differentiate with the zone of transition. There,
yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah. So it's most probably
Soft tissue involvement. Soft tissue involvement.
Maybe some degree of soft tissue involved, swelling overlying the tumor, but then again, this is not very good quality X-ray, so it's not very easy to comment on it.
Kaushik sir, can you help us with the X-ray?
Okay.
Kaushik sir, are you there?
Lateral view also. Lateral view.
We have, sir, only AP view, sir. I'm so sorry.
Okay, so it's not a osteolytic lesion. So most
Sclerotic lesion.
Yeah, zone of transition can come on upon only in lytic.
Yeah, only lytic, not in here.
Yeah. Soft tissue, I will call it rather than ossification rather than calcification. This is more dense. So soft tissue extracellular ossification may be there. I cannot visualize any clear line cleavage between the extracellular ossification and the parent bone cortex. So this may be the epicenter of the lesion, maybe in the bone. And cortical degree of cortical erosion is there on the distal metaphyseal region on the lateral, on the lateral side. These are the information I can gather from this.
Okay.
But,
what next in
clinical? But just a comment.
Yes, sir.
So as the clinical scenario is there is no history of fever, trauma. I think there is no systemic features is also there. No tension is also there. So the radiograph is looking like there may be some malignant neoplasm, isn't it? Maybe a parosteal osteosarcoma, or there may be osteosarcoma, any osteoid forming, that is a bone forming malignant tumor, maybe. But it is not matching with the clinical scenario, isn't it? If it is osteosarcoma, there will be pain first, then the swelling. But there is a swelling is there is a painless, absolutely painless. Next, if it is a trauma, that may be myositis ossificans, there must be history of trauma, or maybe not be the history of trauma in that knee also, but there is a history of head injury that can lead to this type of myositis. But that is also history of that not so trauma, local or also the head injury. So there may be any other possible, but see if suppose if it is a malignant tumor, there must be some significant soft tissue swelling, isn't it? But there is no significant soft tissue swelling is also there, and so yes. So there may be a case of some. It may be maybe there is localized to knee joint. That may be a calcification in the synovium also. That may be some slowly growing synovial tumor. That may be with some calcification. Okay.
So you are okay. We'll go to next investigation. So we got it. Yeah, we got our MRI done. Yeah. Who was describing the X-ray? Can he describe the MRI too?
Okay, so the first image is a T1 weighted image, and the second one is a T2 weighted image of the coronal cut of the lower end of the femur. In the T2 image, we can see that it is a heterogeneous mass which is arising from the lateral aspect of the metaphysis of the lower end of the femur, and it has caused thinning of the O-line cortex, but cortex there's cortical breach also, I think.
Okay.
And
Kaushik sir, can you help us with the MRI? This is a T1 sequence, this is a T2 sequence, this is a stir sequence. These both are fat SAT stir sequence, fat SAT sequence. This is a T1 fat SAT sequence, this is T2 fat SAT sequence. Kaushik sir, can you please help us with the MRI?
T1 hypointense and T2 hyperintense marrow signal intensity.
Yes.
T1 and T2 fat SAT image showing significant perilesional intraosseous edema. Perilesional edema is thing that hints towards something aggressive. You cannot differentiate between benign and malignant, but it's aggressive nature of the disease. With a pathological fracture on the lateral cortex that is also evident in the plain X-ray also.
Yes.
And there's a soft tissue involvement with the
Part of soft tissue.
The perilesional edema is very obvious in the MRI.
Yes.
And there's a solid component. It's not a lytic. It's a solid component.
Solid
inside.
component, that's true.
So from X-ray, history, and the MR, my diagnosis is maybe we are dealing with telangiectatic osteosarcoma.
Okay, an osteosarcoma, telangiectatic, sir, will have more lytic lesions, but
that
so
goes
this is most a sclerosed lesion. Sir was I support sir. Sir was telling some parosteal osteosarcoma because since it is more an eccentric type of lesion and sclerosis and a slow growing tumor, since 2 months he is noticed, and usually parosteal osteosarcoma low grade tumors. So pain is not the main feature which comes first. It's a very slow growing tumor.
Parosteal osteosarcoma, the main symptom is the restriction of the joint movement.
Yeah, it did not come. Still, she just noticed. We got her PET scan done. It was only defined to the knee itself. That's it. Nothing else. So we got our biopsy. Excision was done, and histopathology came out to be a low-grade atypical spindle cell with regular arranged osseous tubercle. Diagnosis: parosteal osteosarcoma.
Exactly. So osteosarcoma, there is just one most point. Osteosarcoma, there will always the pain first, then the swelling. Only the parosteal osteosarcoma. So the age is not matching. Parosteal osteosarcoma.
It's actually female group 30 to 40 or 30 to 50 years are most common. Female low-grade osteosarcoma is parosteal sarcoma. I'm talking parosteal, not the general. Other
parosteal osteosarcoma happens later decade than the conventional osteosarcoma.
Yes, that is classical. Yes, that is why I'm not going into that. Okay, so maybe
parosteal osteosarcoma is if you search in Google, there is a radiological diagnosis. Mostly, if you do a lateral X-ray, the distal end of the tumor arising from the juxtacortical from the posterior
juxtacortical part,
textbook picture of
textbook picture. I did not write that. That's right.
Carry on. Next.
Yeah, a 32 years old male patient, history of a pathological fracture with no comorbidity. Can someone? We got an X-ray done on AP view. This was a case which had come to our hospital only. He is operated from somewhere and had come to our. Anubhava, can you describe the X-ray?
Hello.
Yeah.
Go
on, describe it.
This is a skygram of the left hemipelvis in a skeletally mature male patient. Demonstrating a lytic lesion in the peritrochanteric region of the right.
There's here also. There's here whole everywhere.
Yeah, that is the peritrochanteric region, and along with an associated pathological fracture along the associated intertrochanteric region, there are the head looks the head is apparently there's a sclerosis in the head and with multiple areas of patchy lysis. So
there is no periosteal reaction at all.
No, there is no periosteal.
There are multiple cystic lesions with septations, right?
Matrix.
and the metaphysis looks redified. There is looks.
Kaushik sir, can you help us with the X-ray?
So predominantly osteolytic lesion in the proximal femur, entire half of the proximal femur, with a pathological fracture of the neck, and the part of the femoral head is also involved. Multiple lobulated punched out lesions. Zone of transition is
Narrow.
wide. It's not a narrow zone of transition.
Sir, it is actually, if you see, it's a zone of transition is not that bad. The lesion is all over here, and the lesion is not that bad. Zone of transition. It's a normal layer
The lower
cortex.
part. Okay.
So, what do you think, sir, could be the differentials of this case? Multiple cystic regions with trabecules and pathological fracture.
Alkaline phosphatase is normal.
It's raised.
Means how much it is? In thousands?
We did not get our alkaline phosphatase done. It's like this, he came to us with the pathological fracture. It is did not come to me after the patient followed up after being operated. So we did not have any investigations done at this time.
So for any lesions, any holes in the bone, if you get an alkaline phosphatase raised in the ranges of thousands, you have to investigate in the line of primary hyperparathyroidism. But I am considering the alkaline phosphatase in the normal limit. My first difference should be a giant cell tumor with a patch fracture.
Paul sir, what do you suggest?
Yes, I've already just have a little bit going out. So, okay, it is since a large osteolytic lesion, maybe with some trabecular destruction, with there is a margin is almost it is ill-defined. So I think my first diagnosis would be either giant cell tumor. There is one. Second one, that may be the fibrous dysplasia. Fibrous dysplasia, or there may be some aneurysmal bone cyst, which was present for a long time. Now it has become pathological fracture.
Okay. So actually, the patient got operated outside, not in our hospital, and the report came out to be an osteochondroma. So it is not matching with and they had a report in 2008. Impression osteochondroma, please correlate clinically and radiologically. This was a report in 2008. So patient lost to follow up, came back to our OPD in 2018, and then at this stage, patient had pain in his right hip for last 3 days, with a limping gait, not able to walk without support. There was a bony swelling in his right hip with no restriction of movement though, but there was a shortening. And this was his present X-ray. You can see the lysis has come again here.
Yes, there is a possibility of recurrence. So it could not be osteochondroma.
There is not. So it's not osteochondroma. Most probably not an osteochondroma. Kaushik sir, any enlightenment? What do you think now it could be?
As sir has already mentioned, my difference is also the giant cell tumor with the patch fracture. And as evident from the history, there were lysis around the cement mantle, which is very classical of recurrence in GCT.
Okay. So they repeated histopathology again, but it was inconclusive. The sample was inconclusive. So they did an excision of the tumor with the bipolar itself and put a megaprosthesis. And the histologically report it came to be a recurrent fibrous dysplasia with a pathological fracture. So it's a good case. Fibrous dysplasia, it's very hard to treat. Even if you do an osteosynthesis, it again fractures. So it's a very good case. Okay. So it has a good outcome.
I think this is the day one failure.
Yeah, it was a day one failure.
It is a day one failure. Yes.
And the operation
is not maintained, the length is also not maintained.
Yeah, it is a day one failure. Yeah, it was day
what
one.
Was the diagnosis with that? What was the diagnosis? Can you
recurrence fibrous dysplasia. Recurrence of fibrous dysplasia. Recurrent of fibrous dysplasia. Fibrous dysplasia. It was a fibrous dysplasia itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Okay.
And a tumor megaprosthesis was done for that.
Yeah, tumor megaprosthesis was done for that then. Okay, last but not least, we have a spotter, not for people who are in part of Smart Ortho Learning Group. And
One thing I would like to say, the
Yeah.
age of this patient, what is the age of this patient?
He was about 35, 40 years.
35, 40 years. I think one more
32
salvage
years.
I think one more salvage procedure should have been tried in this patient, and directly a tumor megaprostasis would not have been it is not a very good option in this patient, because
Exactly. I'm also supporting this view. Exactly.
because in what I have seen in so many cases, this prosthesis usually breaks at the junction, from where the main stem of the prosthesis and the stem going inside the distal femur goes. That the junctional area is very weak and it usually breaks within 1 or 2 years. So you will be left only. They won't be left with any other much option in future after 4 or 5 years. Considering his age is quite young, I would have gone for again a curettage, a thorough curettage with plus minus impaction bone grafting with a standard THR or a bipolar in this patient.
I'm absolutely supporting this view. Who is telling that?
Dr. Vineet from Banaras is.
Yeah, absolutely right. Actually, that should be the line of treatment. You see, this is a benign. I already told the clinical diagnosis should be either GCT or there is a fibrous dysplasia or there is any type of benign lesion. Okay, or very slowly aggressive. So it is operated as a day one failure. So what could be done? We have to ascertain the exact pathology. So we have to take it out everything. Then you have to take the biopsy from this. And if it is a benign lesion, so we could preserve that bone. So once we do the salvage, the megaprostasis, everything will be lost because maximum follow-up of the megaprostasis, good results will persist for at least 5 to 10 years. So what will happen after that? So that will be big questions. So before doing a megaprostasis, it should be kept in mind. Okay. So if it is a very older patient, suppose it's a 55, 60 years, and the megaprostasis is well and good. But for the younger patient, we have to always all attempts should be done to preserve the bone stock. Okay, so there is no harm. So we took out all the prosthesis and the cement as much as possible. Take the biopsy from this, and again we go to the next stage. The total hip replacement okay, carry on. Carry on.
Okay. Last we have spotter. Please, people who are in Smart Ortho Learning Group, please don't say. Just put a spotter for Shoham. You are not there part that time. Shoham, can you get me?
Hello.
Yeah, Shoham. This is a spotter for you. You got a X-ray, you got a MRI, you got a CT scan, and you got a histopathology slide. This is a spotter, just a spotter for you. Tell me the diagnosis and can you describe the X-ray, CT scan, MRI, and tell me the histopathology first and then describe it. Then tell me the diagnosis. Shoham?
Yes.
Shoham, you have seen this case?
No, sir.
Okay, go on. Tell me then.
Sir, this is a plain radiograph showing the
of a skeletally mature patient.
Skeletally mature patient showing the ankle. And sir, here we can see osteolytic lesion at the distal part of the tibia with a narrow zone of transition.
Okay.
Without any sclerotic margins.
Okay. People can mute their mic if it's not audible. Yeah. Yeah, go on. Shom, please go on. And go from out to in or in to out. Can you see any periosteal reaction?
Yes, sir. Small amount of periosteal reaction is seen.
A bit of periosteal reaction. Okay. Cortical thinning is there, right?
Cortical thinning is there.
Yeah. And then go inside.
See,
can you see septates
I can see
here?
some septations.
Yeah, very good.
I can see some septations.
Yes. And?
Matrix.
Matrix. Lytic.
Yeah, whole lytic lesion, yes.
Corticomedullary delineation.
He told narrow zone of transition. He's already told narrow zone of transition. And
Hello, am I audible?
Margins.
Yes, yes. Dr. Vineet, go on.
For EGPGs, I would suggest, does anybody know the Ludwig criteria?
No one knows, I guess.
Hello?
Yeah, go on. Tell us.
Hello?
Yeah, please tell.
Please
Does
tell.
anybody also know Ludwig criteria? Ludwig criteria of analytic lesion in any part of bone. So whether we should fix it, whether we should not operate, whether we should operate it. So you guys should go and read that. That's a Ludwig, Ludwig, Ludwig criteria for any pathological lesion in bones. So that's a different. That's a altogether criteria. What are the margins of the lesion, and how much is the extent, which bone it is involving, whether it is involving the weight bearing bone or not. How much is the bone involvement? It's 1/3 of the thickness, 2/3 of the thickness of the bone.
There's Merrill's criteria also for
Merrill's
lesions. 9 points or more.
More than 9.
More than 9.
Less.
You have
8. I think it's 8. Siddharth Bhaiya.
Let us come to the diagnosis first.
Let us come to please describe for this area. Yeah. Go on, tell me, you found the same thing here in CT scan. Can you
Yes.
see something here in MRI? What is this thing? Shoham,
Yes, sir.
what is this thing? What is this level?
Sir, there is a fluid level which I can see.
Yes, very good.
Is it?
Yeah, there's a fluid level here. Okay, MRI, there's a fluid level. You found a epiphyseal
Yes,
a
sir.
bit of metaphyseal
Hello?
lesion. Hello, yeah, you find a epiphyseal or metaphyseal region, and you found lytic lesion
Yes,
and a fluid level. What do you see in this histopath? Can you see this
Sir.
bunch of cells?
Yes, sir.
Multinucleated cells. These are giant cells. Can you see this blood vessels? These are actually, I'll tell you. What you have described is eccentricity is a lytic lesion, bony septation, epiphyseal, metaphyseal with thin periosteal reaction, cortical thinning. Matrix is not mineralized. There is a narrow zone of transition, fluid level. Can you see a giant cell, multinucleate giant cell? These are multinucleate giant cell. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Then there is a mononuclear cells. These cells are mononuclear cells, and there are blood-filled sinuses. So, what is the diagnosis? Can you say me the differentials of giant cell differentials? Soham, can you tell the differentials for giant cell? Which all tumors do you have giant cells seen possible?
Hello, sir. I cannot get you. Hello?
Giant cells are seen in which all tumors?
Sir, it
Anubhav,
will.
yeah, tell me. You know it?
No, sir.
Anubhav, please tell him.
There.
Yeah, Gunjan, go on. See, these are
So they are giant cell. Yeah, you already displayed.
Yeah. I've already displayed it.
Giant
A, B,
cell
C, D,
variants.
E, F, G, H. These are all giant cell variants. It's good for your exam purpose. Okay. So you have to remember all these tumors, giant cells are seen. But what is more characteristics is the mononuclear cells. So this is
Mononuclear cells.
this is a GCT, giant cell tumor with a secondary ABC changes because they have blood-filled sinuses and fluid levels. Okay, thank you so much, guys.
Right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Pal sir. Thank you, Kaushik sir. Thank you, Vineet sir, for being a part of it. It was really good. We learned a lot. We'll meet next day. Till then, bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.